Hello and welcome back to Matt Hayes Tottenham Blog and to another Tottenham transfer roundup. On the day that Oliver Skipp extends his contract at Tottenham until 2027, we have been linked with a handful of midfielders, also a couple of forwards and defenders to look at, as well as some potential departures for this summer. Before we do dive into that, please do make sure to hit that subscribe button down below if you're new to the channel for these transfer updates where we focus only on the reports from the most reliable sources out there in the Tottenham transfer world. Make sure to hit like on the stream as well if you are enjoying this transfer content and looking forward to more of it as we go into the summer transfer window. Let's welcome a few people into the stream. We got Paul Gregory was in here early asking who's late. We got Peter and Ellis in the live chat as well. Good to see you all. Good to see all 20 of you tuning in already. Look, let's dive straight into things with that announcement from Tottenham at 5 o'clock this afternoon. So a little over 2 hours ago, they announced that Oliver Skipp has signed a new contract with the club until 2027. In an official statement on the club website, they said, "We are delighted to announce that Oliver Skipp has signed a new contract with the club that will run until 2027. The 21-year-old midfielder, who is currently recovering from an injury, has made 28 appearances for us across all competitions so far this season, making his competitive first-team debut in a Carabao Cup win over West Ham in October 2018. The academy graduate has gone on to make 52 appearances for us, whilst enjoying a successful loan spell at Norwich City last season, where he featured in 45 of their 46 league games and was named in the PFA Championship Team of the Season." And I think Oliver Skipp is a perfect example of why the loan system works so well. And for Tottenham, I think as fans, we may have lost faith in it a little bit. You're looking at, of course, we have Harry Kane as the outright success story from our loan spells. But recently, you're looking at Harvey White go out to Portsmouth. Jamie Bowden was at Oldham for the start of the season. He was recalled early. Yuki and Atete at Northampton and Cheltenham. Troy Parrott going to Ipswich now at MK Dons, where he's doing a little bit better. But we weren't really seeing much success, and they weren't exactly fruitful for us when we did that. But when you have a player like Oliver Skipp who spends a season at Norwich, and one that I'll admit from my perspective, I was a bit confused as to why we were sending him out, because at that point he did seem to be getting near the first team. And he had started some games. He had been a good player for us. I thought it was a strange decision to loan him out when we did, but ultimately it's worked out absolutely fantastically for us. He had a brilliant season at Norwich. And like I said on We're Tottenham TV earlier today, the best thing about that was Tottenham fans hijacking all the man of the match polls on Twitter. But the second best thing was the first team experience that he found, and almost found a new dynamic to his game. I think his offensive play has been a lot better since he came back from Norwich, and that was certainly something that was seen throughout his time there in the promotion winning season. But definitely to get that one tied down until 2027 for Oliver Skipp. He was interviewed today, and one of the best things he said was, it means a lot when you've grown up with the club. And he's Tottenham through and through. He has been a very important player for us this season, and the stats speak for themselves. The amount of games that we've won when he's in the team compared to what we've won when he's not on the team, he makes a massive difference. And I think that game against Brighton on Saturday showed exactly why. Proved me wrong. I had said I thought we'd be fine without him because of how well Bentancur and Højbjerg were doing. But when there's one bad performance from that midfield, but Bentancur and Højbjerg were way below par against Brighton, all we had to bring in was Harry Winks. The only other midfielder on the bench was Harvey White. And as good as he is, as much of a prospect for the future he is, that was never the situation where we could have brought him on. And if we had Oliver Skipp in the bench then to come back in, I think it would have been fantastic for us. And on that, Lyle Thomas today has said there's still no clear data or idea on Oliver Skipp's return. He is still struggling with the after effects of his infection. And Oliver Skipp himself today said that the injury that's keeping him out at Tottenham dates back to September when he was on international duty. So the fact that it's we're up at 8 months now since this first became an issue for him. It was just before the 3-0 defeat to Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park when he picked up this infection. And it's still proven problematic for him now. So it's a concern how long it's been. It's a mystery injury. Even Antonio Conte said back at the beginning of when Oliver Skipp was out, he said that he was almost annoyed with the medical team. Why haven't they got him back in? But it looks as though it could be even longer. We are Tottenham TV tweeted about half an hour ago that it's their understanding that Oliver Skipp is set to undergo an operation which will guarantee his absence for the rest of the season. And as bad as that is now, as much as it concerns me that could affect our push for top four, I would feel that it's probably better for the long term if they fix the issue now and don't try and force him back in for a couple of games just for the sake of getting into the Champions League now. He's a player who could be absolutely massive for Tottenham long term, and the last thing we want to do is threaten his long-term future. Rain says, can't hear because of the speakers in the stadium, but come on, you Spurs. I believe Ryan is at the Newcastle game. I would assume we're Newcastle playing tonight. They are, of course, Ryan there at the Newcastle and Palace game. Thanks for tuning in, Ryan. Absolute legend. Christopher W as well says, hello, Maddie. Good news with Skippy today, but hopefully he can get over the injury he has. Absolutely. That's the that's the priority now that contract is tied down. I saw a tweet on Twitter. There was with an image attached, and credit to Let's Talk Spurs on Twitter. These are some quotes from Tottenham managers about Oliver Skipp, even dating back to Mauricio Pochettino, who said, with Oliver, it's only about time. If he is capable of working how he's working and doing in the future, the energy and he's behaving now, I think his future will be bright. Jose Mourinho says he's one of these players by human quality, by personality. He's one of these kids that I have no doubt he will be an important player for Tottenham. I see this kid one day being a future captain here. And Antonio Conte, in the very short time he's been at the football club, said he could become a top midfielder. He has this desire to become an important player for Tottenham. And high praise of the player there by three top managers. And I think it's only the beginning of Oliver Skipp's story at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, and I have a feeling it's going to be a very long and very successful one for him. So I'm delighted to see this deal over the line, as I'm sure the majority of you in the chat are as well. Adrian says, Matt, at least most of the transfer speculation surrounding Spurs is about quality players, and it certainly is. That's the Conte effect. That's the Paratici effect. And we're going to dive straight into that now, Adrian, with some updates from Matt Law. Matt Law, very reliable source, it has to be said, in the last 12-18 months for Tottenham. And he said today that Antonio Conte ideally wants 6 new signings this summer: a centre-back, a right wing-back, 2 midfielders, a forward, and a reserve goalkeeper. And that's a list that's echoed by Gary Jacob of The Times. So diving into some more specifics from Matt Law, he says Tottenham are very confident in signing Sam Johnston as a reserve goalkeeper on a free transfer. And this is one that at the moment feels like it's only a matter of time. Alistair Gold himself said recently that it is one that Tottenham are looking for and are confident of getting done. We do have to remember there are other clubs interested in Johnston. He's a very, very good goalkeeper. He's homegrown and he's going for free in the summer. I think Manchester United have been mentioned as a club who are interested. So it's not one that's over the line yet, but it's a good deal for Tottenham. I think it puts the final nail in Pierluigi Gallini's coffin at Tottenham. I think he will be going back to Atalanta, but Sam Johnston is a very good goalkeeper to get in his place. Jack Kanicki with the $5 super chat. Thanks so much, Jack. There was no need, but I really do appreciate it. Says, delighted about the Skippy news, future captain, as Jose Mourinho said. What's the truth behind this Gleison Bremer and Wilfried Singo double deal? Personally, I have no info on this one, but it's one with 2 players that have been linked heavily with Tottenham. I heard back in January about Wilfried Singo potentially as a target for Tottenham. It was one that was it was being looked at in January, but was never going to be a priority or anything. And Gleison Bremer, I definitely did an analysis stream of him before. I can't remember if it was in January or if it was last summer, but there definitely is 100% truth behind the interest in both of these players. Whether or not it's one that Tottenham are looking for in a double deal that is reportedly going to be worth about £41 million, I'm not entirely sure on that, but they both fit the positions we're looking for. They both fit the kind of caliber of player, the profile that Tottenham are looking to sign this summer. So I would assume it's one that we do need to keep an eye on. But as we'll talk about a little bit later, I think a few things need to fall into place for Tottenham before we can pursue either of those deals. We got Brian Daigle in the live chat, says Maddie Hayes, absolutely love that song. Says, I have 2 things to say. First, Ollie Skipp. Second, I love my song you sung for me. Okay, 3 things. Love you, brother. Thanks so much for that, Brian. Love you too. I'll definitely be debuting that song once I have it. Once I have the lyrics finalized, we'll definitely be debuting that in the channel sometime. But great to see you as always, Brian. And that's the next point there that Jack had brought up. Matt Law has said the Torino pair, Gleison Bremer and Wilfried Singo, are on the Tottenham radar for a potential summer move. And what I was saying there, aside from that, is Tottenham may have to consider Jed Spence over Wilfried Singo unless they can sell Emerson Royal this summer. So look, as it stands, we have 2 right wing backs and we have 2 left wing backs. At a first team level, they may not be as good as we want them to be, but they're Emerson and Doherty on the right, Reguilon and Sessegnon on the left, and it's very, very, very rare that you see a team with more than that. And ultimately, that is probably the reason that Serge Aurier is playing with Villarreal at the moment, because he left Tottenham, terminated his contract by mutual consent because we had Emerson and Doherty at the time. We thought Tanganga was an option there as well, which I think has been proved not to be the case. But unless we can get rid of Emerson Royal, Wilfried Singo may just be out of the budget at the moment. And I'd say the same on the other side with Sergio Reguilon. If we do want to pursue a deal for someone like Filip Kostic from Eintracht Frankfurt, ultimately we'll need to sell Reguilon, because the money that Tottenham have available, as always, is limited, and it's going to have to be spent on positions that are more of a priority, like a backup striker to Kane, like a first team midfielder, a first team centre back. We can't spend lots of money on a position where we already have how many players we need there. So we need to let players go to bring in players in those positions, and hopefully we can get rid of Emerson. I've said it a few times now that Fabio Paratici actively looking to bring in a right back, I think, is him accepting the mistake he made by signing Emerson in the first place, which is refreshing to see. I think Tottenham in the recent past have given too much time to these players to prove themselves, which is ultimately the reason why we're still in a situation where Tanguy Ndombele and Giovani and Celso were on our books. I know we have them loaned out, but the reason they're still here is because we gave them too much time to prove themselves. And it doesn't look as though Paratici is going to be that patient. And on the point of Ndombele and Celso and Tottenham's midfield, we can look into the next rumour from Matt Law. So it's more of a rumour because it's a reliable source. But he says Antonio Conte is understood to be a fan of Kalvin Phillips, but it is highly questionable whether or not Levy will be willing to pay the money for him. And there's two key points in this. First of all, Kalvin Phillips is an exceptional football player. He's a starter in that England team for a reason, and Leeds have looked so weak without him this season for a reason. He is immense. He's a brilliant midfielder. Has the kind of Højbjerg side of things defensively, but he can also be good going forward. He has an eye for a pass, and if Tottenham signed him, I'd be happy. If that was a move that Tottenham were able to complete this summer, I think it was a good move, and I'd be looking forward to seeing what he can bring to the Tottenham midfield. But on the flip side, which is the second thing of what Matt Law has to say there, it's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to cost a lot of money, and there are two things that are bumping up his price there. And the first one is the fact that he's English and he already plays in the Premier League. We know that there's a tax there. I think if this is a deal that we're pursuing, it could be 50, 60, 70 million pounds to be able to convince Leeds to sell him. First of all, because they know they can get more money that he's English. But secondly, and the only way I can describe this is by comparing it to the situation with Harry Kane and his failed move to Manchester City last summer. We're in a situation here where the club selling the player value that player more than any other club will. Like I said, Kalvin Phillips is extremely important to that Leeds team in that midfield partnership he's built with Matthias Klick. If, say, for example, Kalvin Phillips is valued at £40 million, Leeds will want 60. If he's valued at 50, Leeds will want 70. And that's the situation that we'll have to overcome if we want to complete the signing. But I'm really not sure if it's something that will happen. And I'm not too upset that it won't happen, because if it is that much money that we're going to be spending, I think there are better options out there. So whether Tottenham get him, Tottenham don't get him, I think it's a win-win either way. But for 50, 60 million pounds, there are definitely better midfielders out there that we can get. Admittedly, probably not Premier League proven, but players who are of a better caliber. And that may sound disrespectful to Phillips. I don't mean it in that way at all. I think he's a very, very good player. But I do think there are better options out there for Spurs. One of them could be the man in the next point from Matt Law. He says there are reservations inside Tottenham about signing Youri Tielemans, and as we'll get into a sec, there's a few stories about Tielemans potentially going to Spurs. But Matt Law says there are reservations inside the club about signing him. And look, I understand it. I mean, Tielemans is an exceptionally talented player, and it was an incredible signing from Leicester to be able to pick him up from Anderlecht a couple of years ago. And I wouldn't say it's a sign of how good their scouting system is, because I think he was a player that the majority of clubs in Europe had identified as a future talent. He was really, really good there for the first couple of years. This season, not so much. And it's definitely down to the overall decline in form and decline in quality in that Leicester team. The reason they're nowhere near the European spots this season. So I can see where the reservations will come from there, that he's had such a bad season, but the talent is there, the quality is there, and we've seen that over the last couple of years, and we've seen it simply from the teams that are still looking to sign him. I think Liverpool are being heavily linked, and Liverpool probably have the best scouting system in the world with the signings they've made recently. Not in terms of picking up kind of hidden gems, but in terms of buying players that improve their first team, even though the deals may be laughed at. I'm talking about ignoring Timo Werner and signing Diogo Jota. Look how that's worked out. So Tielemans is a good option, but if there are reservations there, I can't imagine Tottenham would pursue anything there, because we know how perfect players have to be for Paratici. As a final point from Matt Law, he says Tottenham are open to selling Joe Rodon, which I think we kind of all expected this summer anyway. Connor here says keep Kalvin's name away from Spurs. Connor, if you haven't noticed from that picture, is a Leeds fan. Thanks for tuning in, Connor. But look, you can keep him. You can keep him for the amount of money that you'll demand. I think we'll let that one slide. On Youri Tielemans, so I say there, Matt Law saying their reservations. Gary Jacob of the Times have said Tottenham are monitoring Youri Tielemans, and Fabrizio Romano says Spurs are not currently negotiating with Leicester. They are exploring the situation, but Champions League football could be a key factor in his decision. It's an open race with 5 or 6 other clubs interested. And look, kind of says thank you, no problem. To be perfectly honest, I can't see anything materialising for Youri Tielemans. Tottenham at the moment, I feel our reputation has changed since Conte came in, and especially if we get back into the Champions League, you know, we're not going to be seen as the club that we have been the last couple of years. But I still think there's a gap between us and the best teams in England, the best teams in Europe, whereby if a player of Youri Tielemans' quality comes to Tottenham, he will essentially see us as a stepping stone. And I don't want that. I don't. And I don't think Tielemans will want that either, because his stepping stone club has been Leicester. And I think Leicester knew that from day one. He knew that from day one. That was never a problem for them. But I think that would be a problem for Tottenham, and it would certainly be a problem for me. So I think if Tielemans does leave Leicester, unless the last year, this season, has affected his reputation too much, I think it'll be to a club who win more trophies than Tottenham and who are at the moment just better than Tottenham. As tough as that is to say, realistically, I don't think Tielemans is a player that will entertain joining Spurs. Martin says, have Spurs ever signed a bad Belgian player? Off the top of my mind, I can't think of any. The Spurs fan there says Nasser Chadli was crap. I don't think he was. I think Chadli was good for Tottenham the years he was there. Not good enough to get us into the Champions League where we needed to be ultimately. But I mean, Alderweireld, Vertonghen, Dembele, Chadli, I wouldn't class any of those as bad signings. If anyone can think of one, do let me know in the live chat. It's a good point though by Martin. And look, another midfielder that Tottenham are interested in, and I have a feeling the viewing numbers are going to go down now because people hate talking about this, but Christian Eriksen continues to be linked with a return to Tottenham, and I think it's simply because we're playing Brentford on Saturday that the rumours are going to heat up a lot this week. But Fabrizio Romano, to start, has said that Christian Eriksen's agent will meet with Brentford at the end of the season to decide on his future. There is interest from Tottenham, but no official talks just yet. There's no option to extend his contract for one more season with Brentford, as in there's no option built into that contract to extend it. And he says Spurs won't decide now. He went on to say, I think on the Here We Go podcast, that Spurs could make a decision after he meets with Brentford, and whatever the result of that meeting is, I think Tottenham will know whether their chances of signing the player have increased or decreased. But it's a rumour that's not going away. And to some extent, it does feel like the Leandro Damião rumours, the Paulo Dybala rumours, the ones that it's probably not going to happen, but we're always going to hear about it anyway. But it's also one that could happen because Christian Eriksen had the best times of his career at Tottenham. He won his only league title with Antonio Conte, unless he won with Ajax in the Eredivisie. But he won his most recent anyway with Antonio Conte in the Serie A last season. So it's a move that could make sense. For me, I maintain that I don't really want it to happen. On a footballing front, we're going back to a player that down tools for 18 months towards the end of his career. You still have to question his fitness and whether he will be able to make it in an Antonio Conte team that's very physically demanding. You know, it's different being the kind of ball playing flair player in that Brentford team, as effective as he is at doing that, and then stepping into this Antonio Conte side and playing in that team that runs more than anybody else in the Premier League. I don't know if that is a realistic option for us, but it will be absolutely fantastic to see Eriksen back in a Spurs jersey. And that part of me wants it, but from a footballing front, from a kind of logical standpoint, I don't think it's a deal that would make sense, and I don't think it's one that's going to happen. But look, let's wait and see. You know, Tottenham want to make 6 signings. We want a midfielder. There are reasons why an Eriksen move would make sense. Personally, I don't see it playing out in our favour. Gary Jacob has also said that Tottenham are considering a move to bring Christian Eriksen back to the club. And George Bannister, to reiterate, said last week that Tottenham are absolutely trying to sign him this summer. So this is one that we will definitely be hearing about a lot, either until he puts pen to paper with Brentford or another club, or until he signs for Tottenham. So let's strap in and get used to this one. A few other reports from Gary Jacob. He says Tottenham want to sign a reserve keeper, 2 defenders, at least 1 midfielder and another striker this summer. So reiterating what was said by Matt Law, the club have been monitoring Eriksen and Tielemans while also being the front runners to sign Sam Johnston. He's also said that Antonio Conte is seeking to ensure that he is sufficiently backed in the transfer market to stay at the club. So again, that's one we'll be hearing about a lot. We don't know for sure if Antonio Conte is going to stay at Tottenham. At the moment, it's looking positive. If we get into the Champions League, if Harry Kane signs a contract or even stays beyond this summer, I think it's a no-brainer for Antonio Conte to stay, but I'm sure there are other reasons why he may make a decision either way. And we ultimately know he left Inter Milan because they couldn't promise him absolutely everything that he wanted. With the financial problems, the Zhang family were in their team in China that had just won the Super League, completely fell apart. They couldn't confirm or guarantee that Conte would have the players that he wanted and the money that he needed, and he walked out. Simple as, even after winning their first title in over a decade. So Tottenham do have a task on their hands in keeping Conte at the club, but at the moment I think he will, and I think it's looking positive on that front. And one deal that would help with that is making the move for Dejan Kulusevski permanent. And Dan Kilpatrick has said today that Tottenham have decided to activate Dejan Kulusevski's clause in the summer to sign him for a lower fee. Conte is already considering him as a permanent member of the squad, and Spurs are set to pay £24.9 million for the winger. So it's easy to forget with players like Cristian Romero and Dejan Kulusevski that ultimately they are on loan at Tottenham. They're not permanent players. But it looks as though both of them will be made permanent in the summer. I think the Romero one is an obligation to buy for Tottenham, so that will be triggered either way. There is an option for Kulusevski that will become an obligation if certain criteria are met, but I think that's more aimed at next summer. But it's one that Tottenham want to make permanent, and for £25 million, that's an absolute steal. That is an absolute steal. He's been so good since he came into the side. And he said himself recently, I think that I wanted to show everybody what I could do. I think I maybe became even more motivated. I love proving people wrong, so I was very hungry when I came here. And there's no doubt that he's shown that, and he's been an excellent addition to our team. I go back to the stats that we saw on Sky Sports after the victory against Aston Villa last week, where he, Son and Kane have the highest goal contribution rate in the Premier League since Kulusevski made his first start for Tottenham on the 19th of February. Of course, interesting to see Matt Doherty on that list as well. Mohamed Salah passed him out with his brace against Manchester United last night, but Kulusevski has been an exceptional player for us, and it's a no-brainer to make that permanent. As Tom here says, big up Matt, hit the likes. Everyone, please do make sure to hit that like button. We have 176 people in there and only 26 likes, so please do smash that like button and subscribe to the channel as well if you are new. John Stokes says Matt is top class. I hope you're talking about me and Matt, not Matt Doherty. But either way, I would agree with you. So thank you, John. I appreciate that. But on to Harry Kane and his future, which again is going to be a key topic this summer. Fabrizio Romano has said that for Antonio Conte, ambition means keeping Harry Kane at the club and offering him a new deal. Look, as far as I know, that there have been talks about a new contract between Tottenham and Harry Kane. I put that out there on Christmas Day, and there have been a few whispers kind of since then that confirm that it's true, but it has never been at the point of advanced negotiations or, it's not been, we're close to getting a deal. It's simply been talks about a signing coming, and with the move that Haaland has made to Manchester City, it does look as though his options are very limited. I appreciate that, John. His options are limited, and we'll touch on a few more stories in a second, but Fabrizio Romano says Conte's ambition means keeping Kane at the club and offering him a new deal, which, like I mentioned a minute ago, would be absolutely pivotal in trying to keep the man at the club. Alistair Gold has said Harry Kane is not yet looking beyond the end of this campaign, but there are hopes within the club that he will remain a Tottenham player next season, and that to me says it's Champions League football. That is the decider for Harry Kane. If we don't get it, look, I say it is the decider. It could be the decider in terms of what he wants to do and what he may want for his career going forward. But ultimately, again, if Man City sign Haaland, which it looks like they will, and with Julian Alvarez coming into the team this summer too, that's not an option for Harry Kane. That door is 100% unequivocally closed. Liverpool, I can't see that happening. Maybe that's more to me not wanting it to happen. If they lose Salah, maybe it's one that they'll pursue because, I mean, with Diaz, Mane, Jota, they have wingers there. They could replace Salah, so replace him with an out-and-out striker. That terrifies me. The thought of that is disgusting to me. And Chelsea and Tottenham don't do business. And I don't think Kane would make that move either. So his options are limited. The only alternative maybe would be Man United getting into the Champions League and then a move happening there. But United aren't going to get in the Champions League. They're useless. So I think Kane has one option now, and that's just try and break Shearer's record with Tottenham Hotspur. I think we'd all love to see that happen as well. Gary Jacobs says Tottenham are now confident of keeping Harry Kane after his options for a summer exit were further reduced by Man City's move for Erling Braut Haaland. It is unlikely that Kane would move abroad, having set a target of breaking Alan Shearer's Premier League record. which seems to be the best thing that Kane can achieve with his career at the moment. I mean, we're not going to win the Premier League as much as I'd like to see us win it. Having Conte, having Kane, having Son, whatever signings we make in the summer, ultimately, and I hope every Tottenham fan can accept this, it isn't going to be enough to catch Guardiola's Man City or Klopp's Liverpool. It's just not going to happen, and it's really upsetting to have to admit that, because Tottenham have had this incredible knack in recent years of getting really, really good things at really, really bad times. And I go back to that move to Wembley in 2017. I firmly believe, 100% firmly believe, if we had been able to stay at White Hart Lane for one more season, I think we could be talking about Tottenham as recent Premier League champions. The form we had in that last year at White Hart Lane was absolutely sensational. And that move to Wembley stunted everything that was being done with that squad. That was a bad time to get a very good thing in terms of the new stadium. Right now, getting an Antonio Conte is absolutely fantastic, and it's going to put this club on a much different trajectory to what it was on before Conte. But I don't think we're going to be able to reap the full rewards of having a manager of his caliber, because we're not going to be able to win the Premier League. Let's not rule out a domestic cup or something. Let's not rule out a Champions League either, because stranger things have happened. Before that's clipped, I don't think Tottenham will win the Champions League anytime soon. But for me, that's more realistic than winning the Premier League. And I'd rather win the Premier League, of course, but I think a Champions League will be more realistic, and that is probably the pinnacle we could reach under Conte, which is a very good pinnacle, but it's not the absolute pinnacle, if that makes sense to anybody. A few stories and a couple of exits. Paul O'Keefe on Twitter said that Tottenham will consider offers for Davinson Sanchez, Lucas Moura and Steven Bergwijn this summer. Strange to think Davinson Sanchez was a one-time record signing for Tottenham. We've had a very, very bad luck with record signings, it has to be said, but won't be a loss at all. I imagine we'll get 20-30 million for him, which would be good for a player that's ultimately a bench warmer at this point. And like I've always said about him, I think he could go to Spain or Italy and have a very, very good career and become a very good player. But the Premier League just isn't for him, and it's time we cut our losses there. With Lucas Moura, I'd put him in a very similar bracket to where I'd have Eric Lamela. Cheers for that, Ben. In that he's a player who tries his absolute hardest, has offered at different times some very good things to this team, but ultimately doesn't have the quality to get us to where we want to be. And it's one that will be tough to kind of cut ties there. It'll be sad to see Lucas go. Show me the lights. a bit more blunt with it. Says that Moura has to go. His Spurs career is over now. Yeah, he probably does. And Steven Bergwijn, it's a bit of an odd one because Conte likes him, but there's no real place in him for the team. And Conte said that from day one, that he thinks he can be a backup striker. And I always mention that that double he scored against Leicester to turn it around in the last minute. That seemed to change the fact that he was going to Ajax. It was one day Ajax are confident of getting a deal done, then he scores twice against Leicester, and all of a sudden, Conte wants to keep him and Bergwijn's going to stay, and ultimately he did. And I apologise for the dogs barking, but he hasn't really kicked on since then, and that's what Bergwijn at Tottenham has been. A few good weeks, one good performance here, something there, but he's never pushed on. He scored, I think, in his first 4 home games for Tottenham. His debut, he scored the only goal in a victory against Manchester City. He's had great moments for the club, but he's never kicked on from there, and that's not good enough for us. We can't handle. We don't need players who play good 2 or 3 games and disappear for 6 months, because again, that's probably what Lucas is. That's probably what Lamela was. And Tottenham need better than that. And with the current regime, from the director of football to the manager, I think we are going to demand and we are going to see better than that. So I think with Lucas and Bergwijn, it will be difficult ones to let go, but it's ones that probably will happen. Matt Hayhoe, good to see you in the live chat. We have Kwame as well, says, hey Matt, it's been a while, how are you doing today? Do you think we need this player for next season? Kwame, great to see you too. I'm doing fantastic, and I hope you are as well. I think we need a lot of players for next season, to be honest. We have a lot of players that we need to bring in, but I've no doubt that we will make signings, and we will make good signings. It's just about whether or not they can kick on and actually improve the squad is a different story. Before we discuss that a little bit more, a few reports, as we always do, unknown or lesser reliability reports, these ones that I don't take too seriously, but feel we probably should mention them because they are out there. Daily Mail have said Tottenham are now confident of keeping Harry Kane. Tuttosport have reiterated Matt Law's report that Tottenham are pushing strongly to sign Torino defenders Gleison Bremer and Wilfried Singo in a double deal worth around €50 million. Fabio Paratici has made decisive moves with contact made already. Now, Tuttosport also say that Inter Milan will be happy to sell Spurs target Stefan de Vrij for £16.5 million this summer. Fichajes, which is a Spanish transfer outlet, say Tottenham want to make several additions in the summer and the club have a, quote, sporting project and the economic solvency to attract players, including Boubacar Kamara on a free transfer, who they say we are interested in. David Burns of the BBC says Spurs transfer advisor David Pleat was at the Millwall versus Hull City game to watch forward Keane Lewis-Potter. He's one who was mentioned last summer and in January as well. Marco Conterio says that Dejan Kulusevski's performances for Tottenham have convinced the club not to go after Juventus Argentinian player Paulo Dybala. Calcio Mercato say AS Roma attacker Nicolo Zaniolo remains on Fabio Paratici's list of transfer targets for the summer. Florian Petterberg say that Eintracht Frankfurt would sell Filip Kostic in the summer for around £12 million. And Football Insider say Tottenham are back in the race to sign Antonio Rudiger. Conte is pushing the club hard to sign him and has made it clear he wants to reunite with the defender. I don't see that happening. I don't see us getting Zaniolo. I don't see us getting De Vrij. They're unknown/lesser liability reports for a reason. But look, it's a lot to get through, and you have to remember there's still, a month and a half, 2.5 months before this transfer window opens. It's going to be a painstaking one for sure. And as I mentioned on We Are Tottenham TV a while ago on the Tottenham Hour podcast, it's a weird situation we're in because Tottenham have always been linked with a lot of players. It's always been just the way we are, that we get linked to every player on the planet every single summer, and it's so hard to kind of sift through the dirt and figure out what's real, what's not real, what can actually happen, what are the club actually trying to do. But we're going to get the same this summer, but I feel like there's going to be a lot more truth to a lot more reports because of the way Fabio Paratici works. I'm not going to go through it all. We know how it is. He negotiates for a lot of players. He's interested in a lot of players. So I feel like there will be more actual substance to these reports, but in a way that makes it a bit more difficult to figure out what way Spurs will go and who we're going to sign. And it's a bad thing for fans when you want to know what position you're going to be in next season, but it makes Tottenham a little bit unpredictable. And that's good for, whatever teams are, competing with us in the league next season. If they don't know what that Tottenham squad is going to look like come the 1st of August or 1st of September, whatever it is, that's better for us. Maybe Paratici doesn't know what it's going to look like. Maybe he will negotiate for 4 or 5 players knowing which one he wants to get. We don't know. It's a very new situation for Tottenham. It's a very different situation. And I think it's going to be very different to what we saw last summer with Paratici and Nuno. Look, we made some good signings, but we also tried to make some very bad signings. And I think there will be a little bit different with that, a little bit of difference with that this summer, because it's going from Paratici buying players for Nuno Espirito Santo to him buying players for Antonio Conte. And I think it's going to be a very different summer for Tottenham, but it's one that I'm very looking forward to. One that I'm definitely very looking forward to covering here on the channel. Hopefully a lot more active this summer. Definitely a lot more active this summer, covering transfer stuff. So make sure to subscribe down below if you haven't already. Before we do wrap up, I want to touch quickly on the top 4 race, because how can we not? If anything, I think it's a very relevant topic to bring up on a transfer show, because it changes Tottenham's the possibilities for Tottenham in this summer transfer window. Finishing 4th and finishing 5th could drastically change the future of this club, because if it's 5th, we may not get another summer window in the Champions League for Conte to get the players that he wants. If it's 4th, we could make 6 incredible signings this summer. It's very different, and we got extremely lucky on Saturday. A poor performance, one that I think was coming, and one that I wasn't exactly surprised to see. I was disgusted to see it, but I wasn't exactly surprised, because we've been playing at a level over the last couple of weeks, last couple of months, you could argue, that is better than the squad we have. Not nice to say, but I think it's true. A performance like this was coming, and it was unfortunate we couldn't see out the draw with that performance. If we pick up a point there against Brighton, I think we're in a much better mood now than we are having lost that game. And it's little 1-pointers like that could be the difference at the end of the season. And we all know that. The squad know that. Conte knows that. But then for Arsenal to go out and lose their 3rd game in a row, for United to lose 4-0 to Liverpool last night, and for Arsenal to have to visit Stamford Bridge tonight, this could be huge for Spurs. And I make the point that I don't think United and Arsenal losing this week will make a massive difference for our top four hopes. And I say that in the way that last week or the week before, when we were looking at the fixtures in the run-in, we had identified these as games that they would lose. We had said United would lose at Anfield. We'd predicted that Arsenal would lose at Stamford Bridge, which again, I of course hope happens tonight. So I don't think it changes too much, but it's still great news that they lose. And it's great news that Arsenal's game in hand will be gone, because that's a big mental thing as well. Yeah, we're 3 points ahead of Arsenal, fantastic, but they have that one game in hand. And even though it's at Stamford Bridge, there's still a possibility that that's 3 points for them to pick up. And this weekend then gets even bigger for us, because on Saturday, is it Saturday? On Saturday at 12:30, Arsenal play Man United. At least one of them has to drop points there. Then we play Brentford again, which will be an extremely tough game. And having lost the game on last Saturday in midfield, playing Brentford is not the next game you'd want to see. Their midfield at the moment is Christian Norgard, Vitaly Janelt, and Christian Eriksen. They've started the last 6 games, of which they've won 5, including a 4-1 win at Stamford Bridge. Before that, they'd picked up 1 point in their last 8 games. So they went from 1 point out of 24 to finding this midfield, and now they have 15 points in 18. It's an incredible turnaround. It's a midfield that is winning these games for them. That's the last thing we want to see, having just been outplayed in that midfield by Enoch Mwepu, Caicedo and Basuma. That's not what we want to see. But it's a game that we still probably should win, and one that we better win, because it's a big opportunity for us this season. I wouldn't say we've had a top 4 season. We haven't had a season that you would look at this squad, look at the way we've played, and said they deserve to be in the Champions League. But ultimately, we don't have to be the best team out there. We don't even have to be the 4th best team out there. We just have to pick up more points than most of the teams in the Premier League. And at the moment, it's looking likely that we could do that. So I'm very excited about where this season could go. Let me know in the live chat if you think Tottenham can end up in the top 4. If you think we will end up in the top 4. What I'm going to do as well, we are Tottenham TV are live at the moment for a watch along of all 4 Premier League games tonight, including and mainly focusing on Chelsea's game against Arsenal. I'm going to be in the live chat there for most, if not all, of the games. So I'm going to put the link in the live chat. I want you to head over there and just say Matt Hayes sent me. We've nearly 200 people in here right now. 50 of you can go over there. Let the lads know that Matt Hayes sent you over, and we'll hopefully get to enjoy Chelsea beating the scum tonight. Before you do leave, of course, do make sure to smash that like button down below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let me know if you want more of this content over the coming weeks, coming months. Even if you don't, it's going to be here. Transfer stuff all the way through. We're going to get some more people on this channel, getting fresh perspective, fresh views, and a lot more content coming out soon. So for myself, I hope you enjoy it. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.